The goal of this lesson is to introduce you to our circadian rhythms, or our 24-hour biological clock that governs our sleep-wake cycle. This is the beginning of our unit on states of consciousness, so I just want to start off by defining what we mean when we say the word consciousness. So when we talk about consciousness, we are referring to our subjective awareness of ourselves and our environment. So our consciousness changes in cycles that correspond to our biological rhythms or our biological clock, and the patterns of stimulation that are in our environment. You're going to start off in your notebook by taking this little inventory to see whether or not you're getting enough sleep. So you're probably going to do that before you watch this video. So talking about sleep, the mysterious third of our lives. You figure we have a 24-hour day, about 8 hours of which should be spent sleeping. So we're going to talk about how our body really governs our sleep-wake patterns with what are called our circadian rhythms. Our circadian rhythms are patterns that repeat approximately every 24 hours. This should actually say physiological patterns. I mean, there's psychological component too, but physiological patterns that repeat approximately every 24 hours. This biological clock is influenced by the presence of light outside, because if we look at the part of the brain that's responsible for this biological clock, the suprachiasmatic nucleus of the hypothalamus, it actually sits right behind the eye tract. So picture your eyes being right here. Light comes in through the eyes and it's activating it. It's sending signals to this part of the hypothalamus that is then going to govern the secretions of hormones like melatonin. Melatonin is the hormone that is secreted at nighttime when it's dark that makes us sleepy. So our circadian rhythms are very much impacted by the light-dark cycles of night and day, because it's sitting, the suprachiasmatic nucleus is sitting right above the optic tract, and it's sensitive to incoming light. So this is why experts say you should sleep in a room where the curtains are open and light is going to flow in the mornings, because that's going to help your body maintain this sync that it's supposed to have with our with these circadian rhythms. This is why it's difficult for people who work shift work, for people who work at night and then have to sleep during the day, because that is fighting against your body's natural inclination to be responsive to light-dark cycles. And jet lag is also another example of something that can be very disruptive to your circadian rhythms. So again, just kind of the biology of this. You're seeing that in response to incoming light to the eye, the pineal gland secretes what we call melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone which regulates sleep and wakefulness. Some people who have trouble sleeping at night will actually take melatonin. They'll take like a melatonin tablet to help them sleep at night. In this graphic, you can see kind of what this 24-hour cycle looks like. So our alertness fluctuates at different parts in the day, as do our physiological processes. So let us start down here at 6 a.m. 6:45 a.m. we have our sharpest rise in blood pressure. Melatonin secretion stops around 7:30 in the morning. You see up here that melatonin secretion starts around 9 o'clock at night when it's dark, again because of that sensitivity to light-dark cycles. In the morning, we have a bowel movement likely. Interestingly, bowel movements are suppressed while we sleep at night. Think about the last time, I guess, you had a bowel movement in the middle of the night unless you were sick. It's very, very rare for that to happen, and that's part of your biological clock, so to speak. High alertness at 10 a.m., best coordination early afternoon, our fastest reaction time mid-afternoon, our greatest cardiovascular efficiency and muscle strength, highest blood pressure, highest body temperature, and then we start this cycle all over again. So this gives you a little bit of insight into, generally speaking, what our circadian rhythms look like. But we're going to see that for teenagers and young adults, this is our circadian rhythms are your circadian rhythms are actually set back a bit compared to adults. Let's see. Daylight savings time is something that really interferes with our circadian rhythms, and there's all kinds of research indicating less work, workers being less efficient on a Monday following daylight savings time. Really interesting research as well is that judges are more likely to punish offenders with sentences that are longer following daylight savings time. I want to point out that the blue light that is emitted from your electronic devices push back your sleep cycle. They'll result in a shift in your sleep cycle because they actually delay the secretion of melatonin. So you can see like a candle, there's like practically no blue light being emitted, right? But now if we're talking about a tablet or a smartphone, we have greater amounts of blue light being emitted, which again is delaying the secretion of melatonin, which in effect is delaying your ability to fall asleep. We'll finish talking a little bit about the adolescent sleep-wake cycle. So whereas you can see kind of what a childhood circadian phase might look like, look at what an adolescent circadian phase looks like. You are meant at this point in your lives to be staying up later and waking up later. This is why the American Academy of Pediatrics and so many other professional organizations have recommended that school does not start before 8:30 in the morning for high schoolers. Because asking you to get up and sit in a classroom and learn at 7:30 in the morning is completely counterproductive. It goes against the way that your body actually functions. There's a really interesting evolutionary explanation for this. From an adaptive standpoint, some evolutionary psychologists and scientists believe that staying up later meant that young adults didn't have to compete with older alpha males and alpha females who went to sleep earlier, and that this gave them actually a reproductive advantage. Heightened sexual activity tends toward what's called eveningness or nighttime, and so it's thought that it's a possibility that the reason for this delay in the circadian cycle has these adaptive roots to it.